Okay, so today I wanted to weigh in on the upcoming presidential election. A lot of friends of mine have been asking me where I stand and how I stand with the different candidates, and felt it was about time that another American weighs in and lets their opinion be known. There's basically, for all intents and purposes, two sides. Yes, there is a Libertarian Party. Most people don't even know who the candidates are for the Libertarian Party. So as of right now, it's Republican and Democrat, as it always is. On the Republican side, we are down to four candidates, unfortunately. We have Ben Carson, we have Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, and Donald Trump. On the Democratic side, we have Hillary Rodham Clinton, and we have Bernie Sanders. So, to start, I personally was a Rand Paul supporter. I believed in Rand Paul. I believed in his defense of the Constitution, the defense of American rights, his fight against the police state that Washington and the Federal Reserve and other branches of government have been trying to force down our throats. He fought against the NSA spying. He fought against all of it. And he fought for the betterment of America through the keeping of our freedoms into the future, so that our children and our grandchildren would live in a free country as well, not a socialized police state. Unfortunately, Rand Paul has dropped out of the presidential race. Now, I knew, unfortunately, that he was not going to win. He didn't have a chance to win because the man is too civil to fight the type of campaign that was needed to properly win the presidency. That being said, he is running for re-election in the Senate, and I fully hope he retains his seat in the Senate. And even though I live in Illinois, I plan on sending him contribution money for his Senate seat, because we need him in the Senate fighting for our freedoms. I'm going to start with the left, the Democrats. The Democratic Party, to start with, is the party of political correctness and social justice. It's the party of the welfare system. Not saying that the Republicans don't have their hand in it too, because, well, I'll get to that in a bit. The Democratic Party's candidates, Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton. Hillary Rodham Clinton, the wife of William Jefferson Clinton, former First Lady, former Secretary of State, who is still under investigation for her actions as Secretary of State and could potentially get indicted. She won't. She's too well protected. They're never going to indict her. That being said, let's look at what the crimes of the Clinton family are. William Jefferson Clinton he's assaulted numerous women throughout his political career. He has gotten away with it through settlements and or bullying of those women to drop the charges. It's come out later, they've had their families threatened, their lives threatened, their jobs threatened, their very image destroyed, their very livelihoods stolen from them, all by the Clintons, usually by the hands of Hillary Clinton. Now, many people would say that was because she was angry at these women for being involved with her husband in any way, shape, or form. But that's actually not the case. It was because she was protecting her image so that she could propel herself further. The two of them married as a love of their love doesn't really exist. It's a marriage of convenience. They married each other for the mutual power that each other could give them, the political and business connections that each of them had through their own different political and business associations and familial associations. Hillary Clinton sits there and laughs about the emails. She laughs about the leaked information from the State Department. She laughs about being accused of, and there's proof on paper, of her basically selling the State Department via the Clinton Foundation. You donate money to the Clinton Foundation, you pay Bill so much money for a BS speech, and the State Department just happens to approve something for you or assist you in some way. She transferred weapons to the Muslim Brotherhood in Benghazi, in Libya, which led to the death of our ambassador in Benghazi, to cover up her actions of selling those armaments, which happened to be surface-to-air missiles, which now ISIS has. And, oh yeah, there were articles, ISIS developed their own surface-to-air missiles, and then you read on, all ISIS did was learn how to change the batteries on old U.S. weaponry. Well, where the hell did they get that old U.S. weaponry? They got it from Hillary Rodham Clinton and the Muslim Brotherhood. But is she going to be indicted for this? No, she's not. And this is who we want in the White House. Someone who, if you don't agree with her or you make fun of her, she sends her lawyers after you or your goons or her goon squad. I mean, some comedians at the Laugh Factory made fun of her. She sent her lawyers after them, and they were threatening to shut down the Laugh Factory in court. Take them to court and, just shut them down. But you run their bills up so high in legal defenses that they had to go out of business simply for making fun of Hillary Rodham Clinton. That's a comedian's right. A comedian has a right to make fun of somebody. It's satire. It's been comedy around the world since the dawn of comedy. If you go to a Renaissance fair, there's always somebody there dressed as a fool that makes fun of people and gets made fun of. And it's historically accurate. Hillary Rodham Clinton does not care about the rule of law. She does not care about this country. She cares about her own personal ambitions and her own personal power. So anybody out there who thinks that she is, I've met a lot of women who say they're going to vote for her just because she's a woman. Well, that's stupid. She doesn't have women's rights in mind. She could care less about women's rights. Under the Clinton presidency, and the only presidency that's been worse to women since the Clinton presidency, believe it or not, according to the papers, is the Obama presidency. And she was first lady during that presidency. So how could she let all the women in the White House get treated like crap, underpaid, everything, if she actually gave a damn about women's rights? It's because she doesn't. She gives a damn about her own rights and her own power. Bernie Sanders, the socialist, Mr. Free Everything. I'm going to create single-payer healthcare systems. I'm going to create free education, and I'm going to create all this other stuff. Well, it sounds good. It sounds great. It sounds great. Who's going to pay for it? Who's going to pay for it? There's not enough money. There's no money. The country is going broke. There's states in the union that are on the verge of bankruptcy. Illinois, California, New York. Or rather Michigan, sorry, New York, I meant Michigan. The country does not have the money. We don't have the money to pay for free everything. We don't have the money to continue to support the mass illegal immigration into this country. We don't have the money. We're turning, his plan would turn the working class American into a slave class where the vast majority of their money goes, their work goes to everyone else. What's the point of working if we're going to be like France and 70, 80, or 90% of your income is going to be taxed? If you make $1 million a year in France, you get taxed 101% of your income for 3 years. Then you get taxed 98% of your income for 3 years. You tax negative. In France, if you're making $100,000 a year, you're usually in the 85 to 90 percentile tax bracket. You made $100,000 this year, you're in the you got to pay 90% or 85% taxes. Fine. So you took home $15,000. $15,000. That's your net take home after taxes in France. Yeah, sure, everything's paid for everybody. Why work? Because the government forces you to. That was the Soviet Union, people. That was the Soviet Union. It's not what we need in this country. Bernie Sanders is not the candidate we need. None of his, he would never accomplish anything in Congress will continue to be controlled by the Republican Party after this election, the House and the Senate. The chance of the Democrats taking back either branch of the Congress is slim to none, and the Democratic Party knows it. That's why they're all in on the presidential race. They want the presidential seat so that they can at least have some influence in government. Well, Bernie Sanders won't get nothing passed through a Republican Congress, House and Senate. He would be an ineffective president who would not be able to do anything. And his policies just don't pan out. There's not enough money. There's not enough of the working class. I am not paying 80 to 90% taxes. My wife and I, our combined income, it's not $100,000 a year. It's not that far from, though. So if I lived in France, my tax bracket would be around, honestly, 75 to 80%. Really? Really? I get to take home virtually none of my money? I don't think so. I work too hard for my money. I work 2 jobs. My wife works a full-time job. We have 3 incomes coming into this house. I should give that up because somebody else wants a free education, because somebody else wants free health care. I pay for my own health care. I understand there's people out there that are struggling. There's lower income people that need help. I have no problem with helping out fellow American citizens. I have a problem helping out everybody. Because even fellow American citizens should only be helped out for so long. Part of that help that they're given should be to get them back up on their feet so they don't need help anymore. That's what the whole idea of the program was originally designed for. But instead, it's been hijacked to keep people on the government dole, which creates a slave state. It creates a Cloward and Piven strategy of divide and conquer. You have a working class and you have a dole class. You have an upper class and a middle class and a lower class for the working class. You can subdivide the working class into 3 additional classes: wealthy, middle, and lower. Upper, middle, lower. And then above the working class, you have the wealthy elite, and then you have the ultra rich. The wealthy elite really aren't nothing. It's the ultra rich, the banksters, Soros, Rockefeller, Rothschild, and Windsor, the Bushes, and Kissinger and all of them. The ultra rich. But you get a caste system, which can also be divided by racial ethnic groups, religious groups, political groups. Keep dividing us and dividing us and dividing us, until we forget we're Americans, all of us. We all have a responsibility to each other, and we all have a responsibility to our future generations to make sure that they have a chance to achieve for themselves that which our predecessors had to a chance to, and ourselves had a chance to achieve for ourselves, a betterment for ourselves. It cannot be achieved under the socialist dream of Bernie Sanders. And moving on to the Republican Party. The Republican Party, the party of the opportunist. Many people say they're the party of big business, and that is true, but both sides of the party is big business. The Democrats tend to lean towards the big banks, and the Republicans tend to lean towards big business. It's all the same people. It's all the same. But that being said, Republican candidates tend to be a little bit more conservative and tend to, on average, have a little bit more respect for the Constitution and foresight for the anger of the American people than the Democratic candidate. I like to consider myself a conservative independent or a conservative libertarian, but the truth is I do vote Republican more than I vote Democrat. I have voted a Democrat on a few candidates here and there, but for the 95% of my voting history is Republican and or independent. The Republican Party is not to be trusted. The establishment party cares only for themselves and the betterment of their rich elite and the ultra elite. They are owned, bought, and paid for. Done. So that gets us into our candidates. The establishment candidate at this present time is Marco Rubio. Marco Robato, as I like to refer to him, and so do many others. Marco Rubio. Now, you know what? We're going to take a step back. Let's look at all four of our candidates again. Ben Carson, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, and Donald Trump. Now, in the media over the last few weeks, there's been some joking around about the legitimacy of the natural birth status of three of the candidates. Or actually, two of them. There really should be three of them. And that is of Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio. Ben Carson's the only one who has two American parents and was born in America and is naturally born American citizen. Donald Trump, his mother was Scottish. She was a naturalized American citizen at the time of his birth in the United States of America. Under the law, he is a natural-born citizen. Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz's mother was American. His father was Canadian. He was born in Canada. He technically had dual citizenship. It's a little sketchy. Had he gotten rid of his dual citizenship at 18 and chosen his American citizenship, or at the very least by the time he was 21, you could claim that he's always claimed to be an American and therefore he has natural birth status. Since he kept his dual citizenship up until a few years ago when he was starting to decide if he was going to run for president, you have to question his true leanings towards natural birth status. Now, I firmly don't care. I'd say he's a natural born citizen. One of his parents was an American. He has the right to the natural birth status. Marco Rubio is the one I would question on natural birth status. He's an anchor baby. His parents were from Cuba. They illegally immigrated into the United States of America and settled up in Las Vegas, Nevada, where he was born, thus making them American citizens. So yes, his parents are American citizens, but they were not American citizens until he was born. So yes, he became an American citizen because he was born on American soil. And that's the citizenship his parents chose for him. But to be naturally born, your parents must be American citizens, which they were not technically, under the law, American citizens at the time of his birth. They were Cuban citizens. So Marco Rubio is the one candidate you could find some fault with his natural birth status. And rightly so. His parents were Cuban, not American. In any other country around the world, he would have been a Cuban citizen at the time of his birth. He would not have had the option of becoming a citizen of that country. So, neither here nor there. No one's going to make a lawsuit on it. I sure as hell don't have that kind of money. Marco Rubio is the establishment puppet. He supports amnesty. He supports opening of the borders. He supports all the free trade acts. He supports all of the North American Union stuff. He supports all of the UN Agenda 21 stuff, all the Smart Cities Initiative, the Common Core Curriculum, the open vaccinations. He supports all of that. He is not the candidate of choice. Every now and then he votes to try and save his, face, but for the most part, he does not vote the right way. He does not vote for the American people. And for those American people who have a true interest in the immigration issue, which my only interest, I'll be honest with you, is economic. The economics aren't there. We don't have the jobs. We don't have the money. We don't have, I understand a hovel in America is probably way better than whatever they're coming from. But there comes a point where you got to stand up where you're coming from and say enough's enough. We got to do something. I know many have tried, but I don't know. I know America will collapse at the present rate that it's going. And we'll have no one to blame but ourselves. Especially if we elect Marco Rubio. And if Marco Rubio gets selected as the candidate, I can guarantee you if he goes up against Hillary Clinton in the debates, she will wipe the floor with that man. He doesn't stand a chance against her. That being said, neither does Ben Carson. Ben Carson's a great guy. He's a smart man. He's a neurosurgeon. And I'm not saying an average American with no political background can't be president. But Ben Carson is far too timid. Not to mention some of his plans, his tax plan doesn't, I know where he gets it, and I understand the idea behind it, the whole, but if he would go with a straight flat tax system, I'd support him. But his system is a modified flat tax. Well, I'm not going to get into it. But his system it's not going to work. And they'll never get passed through Congress. So Ben Carson, and on the geopolitical front, he's going to be way too timid geopolitically, in my opinion. He's been too timid in the debates. He's been too timid in the way he's run his campaign. He's barely holding on, and Hillary would wipe the floor with him. Because let's face it, Bernie Sanders is not getting the nomination. Jumping back to the Democrats for a brief moment, Bernie Sanders is not getting the nomination. Well, I'll get into that in a minute. Hillary will wipe the floor with him, though. Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is probably by far the smartest of all the candidates that are on the playing field. Ted Cruz is a brilliant man. He truly understands law and constitutional law. He has a habit of voting conservatively and religiously. But every now and then he'll have a vote, or he'll miss a vote that makes you go, Such as the vote on the Federal Reserve. Why wasn't he there? Oh, he was campaigning. Well, this was an important vote to audit the Fed. Didn't pass because a number of you didn't show up. What the hell? Well, he can't audit the Fed. He'd get his wife in trouble. She's a former board member of Goldman Sachs. She might still be a member. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but I know she's involved with Goldman Sachs. She's involved with several of the other major banks. She's involved with the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission. These are all organizations that are UN controlled and we want nothing to do with. Now, Hillary Clinton was once quoted for saying, when they opened up the CFR in Washington, D.C., she said, "This is great. Now, when I need to know what to do, I can just come down here and you guys can tell me what we need to do." Or along those lines. Because those candidates care more about the globalist movement than the American movement. More about globalist destiny than our manifest destiny. They've given up. They don't want America anymore. They want a bigger piece of the pie. They want the world. Ted Cruz comes from that genre, and things that make you go, Ted Cruz tries to play that he's the evangelical vote. He's the best vote for the Christian vote. He's going to protect Christian interests, and he's going to go against the whole the war against marriage, and that's Ted Cruz. The problem is, practice what you preach. He recently got a very sizable donation from some of the more prominent gay members of the Republican Party, which is fine. Gay members of the Republican Party want to donate to an active election campaign. That is their business. And these gay members of the Republican Party happen to be financially involved in one of the largest gay porn studios in the country, in the Western Hemisphere, actually, which is fine. That's their business. That's where you make your money. That's where you make your money. So be it. I don't care. And I don't care that they want to donate to a campaign. That's their business too. What makes me go, is Ted Cruz is supposed to be the evangelical vote. So what you've just told me, Mr. Cruz, is that if enough money gets flashed your way, your values get put over here because the money's more important. And your wife is Goldman Sachs. Your wife is Council on Foreign Relations. Your wife is Trilateral Commission. So we already know the money is more important than your values. And you proved it by the stunt you pulled in Iowa by making people think Ben Carson had dropped out right before the voting. It did affect some of Ben Carson's results in Iowa. And some of the other tricks you pulled in New Hampshire. You are obviously not the Christian you claim to be, sir. And I refuse to assist in putting a banker puppet into the White House. So that brings us to Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Many people have forgotten, or maybe they do remember, Donald Trump thought about running for the presidency back in 2012. He made hints at it when he was still doing his Apprentice TV show. And Obama was rerunning for office. And then he decided not to do it. And then he goes and jumps into the race this time. I actually was very mad at Donald. When he first went to run in 2012, or hinted at running, I was one of the people who signed a petition supporting his run for president. I was one of the people that had signed up being willing to volunteer to work for his campaign office, should he come through my state or should he need me in my state. And then he didn't. Because here I thought, Donald Trump, all right, great, a businessman. He knows politics because of he's had to deal with politicians and the law in order to do his business. He's had businesses fail and brought him back up on him. He very well may, and he doesn't care what people think of him, and he's very, he says his mind. He doesn't give a damn about political correctness. This could be good for the country. But then he didn't run. And then he goes and turns around and decides he's going to run. I was so mad at him. It was like, really? Really? You were too scared to run against Obama? Too scared to run against Obama? Didn't want to go up against an incumbent president? Or the first black president? Is that it? Is that it, Donald? What was it? What is different from 2012 to now? What has changed in the last 4 years? Because all I've seen is this country go further down the tubes. That being said, Donald Trump is still speaking his mind. I like that. He doesn't give a damn about political correctness. He wants to protect the border and enforce our immigration laws. I like that. Way to go. He wants to go after stop messing around with the Middle East, go after the terrorist groups, deal with them and be done with it. I support that. He wants to open up future talks with Russia. I support that. Try and get a better accord going with Russia. He's got a strong character. He's not going to be pushed around. Geopolitically, people are going to respect us because they're not going to be sure what the hell Donald Trump's going to do. And he might on the geopolitical stage slow down this globalism a bit. He's against all the free trade agreements because he's a true American entrepreneur. He gives more of a damn about his American businesses and his American livelihood than he does, and his American nation, than he does his global corporations. He's an American. Now, that being said, he's not perfect. He has some stances on eminent domain that I don't support. For example, he supports the Keystone Pipeline. A lot of people do, but a lot of people don't know what's really going on with the Keystone Pipeline out of Canada. The Keystone Pipeline is being done by a Canadian corporation that will be, if the project passes, will be given the right of eminent domain in order to make sure that the project can be done the most efficiently, effectively, and under the shortest timetable. Well, that means a Canadian corporation will be able to come in and buy for pennies on the dollar American land that has been owned by ranchers, farmers, and private landholders for a year, 5 years, 10 years, 100 years, whatever. That seem right to you? No, it doesn't. Now, they're going to turn around and claim it's for the public good. Well, how is a private pipeline owned by private corporations that services private industry good for the public? Oh, it's going to increase tax revenue. That's going to be the response. Taxes. So Americans should be essentially screwed out of their land for taxes. Well, weren't they already paying taxes on that land? It's not right. So I don't agree with Trump on his stance on eminent domain. I don't agree with Trump on his stance on cybersecurity. And I don't agree with Trump on his stance on the Western land management. Out in the Western states with the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management. When he was asked about it, what was going on with the Oregon ranchers and all of that stuff, and the Arizona ranchers, he said, well, the government's a good steward of the land. Why aren't these guys letting the government have the land? Well, I understand he needs to get more informed on the facts. The fact is, the federal government's not supposed to control that land. It's supposed to be the state governments. The state governments were supposed to get their land back. After the Civil War, when territories started becoming states, the federal government stopped giving land back to the states. And now they made agreements with the states that they would manage this land, but the states would have full use to it, and so would the citizens of the states. Now they're reneging on those agreements and seizing the land. And they're making claims that, oh, it's for a desert tortoise, when in reality they're trying to sell it off to a Chinese lease it rather to a Chinese corporation for, a solar panel farm, or to Russian corporations to mine our Ukrainium, screwing our American miners out of their mining rights. All for greed. So there are some things that man needs to be educated on. That being said, on the Republican side, he is the best choice for candidate. On the Democratic side, there is no choice. It's going to be Hillary. Hillary is the choice for the Democrats. And the reason why I say that is because Bernie Sanders is not going to be allowed to win. It's a dog and pony show. Bernie Sanders won New Hampshire. He took 60% of the vote. She took 40% of the vote. Yet she walked away with more delegates. Why? Because she already has all of the super delegates from the Democratic Party. It gave her 2 more delegates over, I think it was 2 or 4 delegates more than Bernie Sanders in New Hampshire. But Bernie Sanders won New Hampshire. So unless Bernie Sanders were to win each state with a landslide, there's no way in hell he could get enough delegates to win against Hillary Rodham Clinton. So Hillary Clinton is getting the presidential nomination from the Democratic Party. Ta-da! We already know who's getting the Democratic nomination. Why even pay attention anymore? So, on the Republican side, Donald Trump really is the best choice. I just messed up my hair. On the Republican side, Donald Trump really is the best choice. He's the only one that's going to be strong enough to go up against Hillary Rodham Clinton. He's the only one that's going to be capable to properly represent us on the geopolitical front and international deals. He's going to fight against these free trade agreements. He might get Congress to get off its ass, pardon my language, but to get off its rump and actually do their jobs for a change. And we might actually get somewhere with this Obamacare and all this other bad stuff that's been put into effect by the last 2 presidents, 3 presidents, 4 presidents, going back to George H.W. That's it. That's all I got for the election. So I'm going to have to go with Donald Trump. I hope everybody else out there finds this information informative and helps you to make a choice. Talk to y'all later.